I'm seeing some faces that I have to say look somewhat familiar to me. I just saw your post, Kelly. That's awesome.
Hey guys.
Howdy, howdy. All right. All right. Well, today this session promises to be super boring. Okay. So just so you know what
Hi.
I have in store for you. It's going to be so peaceful that everybody's just going to be lulled into like a precious little nap. That's the goal. And in a way, what we're sort of doing here is kind of like the pure form, right? Um, what I like about this is it really it really makes space for, and tell me if this is okay, Raj, what you and I were talking about today, but always a death and a birth, dot, 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 always at the same time. I think that's to me what's the most beautiful thing about the 12-step process is this very natural um, rebuilding, this falling apart and this building back up. Back in the 70s, I'm old enough where it's like my mom and all of them. It's like the ladies would talk about having a nervous breakdown, which is just code for hitting a bottom, you know. And that's all it is, right? And and so for us to actively embrace that process that happens inside or outside of the step thing, but just to have a sort of system and a way of talking about it is so helpful and so powerful. And more importantly, I think it's like you can do it kicking and screaming, or you can do it going with the flow of the river. That's really the difference. And because our society is so focused on success, that whenever there's a bad feeling or there's a lull in your energy, there's this panic of like, oh no, I'm going in the wrong direction. And to sort of get a mindset where it's like, no, it's all happening for my good. It's not, why now is God punishing me? It was going so well and I was doing so good. It's like, no, it's just all part of the process, right? Okay, so y'all, I think that's the Texans' greatest um what donation to our vocabulary is y'all. It's like the perfect word. Y'all know what I'm saying? Let's see. Okay, need my notes. Okay, so we created last week, we looked through step 3 and we came up with our long list. And now I'm certain that you have all made a short list that you're going to share with me. And I would love, 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 love to hear it. I'm getting my things together so that I can sort of compare notes. Oh, good. Cheryl is here. So now the party can officially get started. We were all just in sort of this neutral position, not knowing what to do with ourselves, Cheryl. And now that you're here, we are ready to rumble. We felt sort of lost and rudderless. Okay. So who would like to share their short list for step 3? Like what they have chosen to sort of focus on and is the most important to them about how to work this step.
I'll go.
Okay, great.
I
Love
I
it. Last to arrive, first to share.
I
Just dive right in. I love it.
I kind of had a 3 or 4 sentence short list, and then I thought, no, because when I'm having a meltdown, all I need is stop and listen. That's it.
I like it. You know what I would suggest is I suggest that you have that list because I love it. And then I suggest you have the backup list so that you can go a little more thoroughly into it right behind that. You know, you say, okay, stop. And if that's not working and not footing the bill, you can sort of downshift and have this backup.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, for that, at the top of my backup was nothing short of continuous action upon these as a way of life can bring the much desired result.
beautiful. Okay. Was that the was that the whole was that the whole list? That was your short list aside
Yes,
from your new one?
I'm
Okay.
a minimum.
I like that. Well, and the reason I like to review these is like there could be, so listen to other people's lists, then we'll have everybody share their lists and just see if there's something that pops out to you that it's like, oh yeah, that's a good reminder. Like it's hard for me to imagine in this, since we're talking about money, make God your new employer. It's like, okay, God is my employer. And it's like, all right, so if you're having a problem with your boss and you look at this, God is my employer, that really reorients everything when you're dealing with money, right? So like that's one that I would there's a couple on here that I'd say, all right, they're sort of required to really capture the essence of the step, right? Because it's not just about having a good idea, because you can do that anytime. It's about what is this step actually saying so that I can practice it. Right. So I love your first one. Nothing short of continuous action. I mean, that's how I live my life. It's like I am continually applying in every moment because how often does shit come up in your life? I mean, every couple of hours at least, right? So it's like, it's not like this stuff is this esoteric, oh, well, I'll have it there if I need it. No, it's like we're front lines every day. Every day something new is coming at you that you're not quite prepared for, that you don't know how to handle. And we have these self reactions. Like the first thing my mind went to, it was selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of our troubles, which is not actionable, but for me, it's a good reminder. This is a pretty good one. Above everything, we must be rid of self. I think it's selfishness, but I shortened it because that helps me focus a little bit better. It's like, okay, self is having a reaction to this. And so then I turn and I pay attention to that above everything. It doesn't say once you've solved the problem that's in front of you, then you must really turn and deal with self. No, it says above everything, which means the current problem. The current problem is a distraction from healing, guaranteed every time. Okay, who wants to share their list next? So I can just rip it apart. Come on, who wants? We want carnage here. That's what the people are paying for. Shayna, did I see you volunteer with that subtle head nod? Pretty sure I did.
There's no such thing as a short list for Shayna. I got a long list and a
That you're
long
so
list.
wrong. You're so wrong about that because you're about to have a short list. Because
Okay.
we're all here together going to help you cut the fat away so that you can get it down to what's going to be most helpful for you. And
Okay,
then
cool.
Shayna will have a short list and that will invalidate your previous statement. And then you
All
don't get
right.
to ever say anything like that again.
I like it.
Ever. Okay.
Okay. Well, I have two full pages of stuff that I wrote down. One is from the 12 and 12 and one is from the big book. But I
Okay.
feel like my short list mostly comes from the big book. So I'll read you the
Okay.
ones that I
Yeah,
highlighted.
honestly, I'm such a fan of the 12 and 12, but in terms of this step, kind of the better stuff is in the big book. So you're not lying.
Yeah, it's kind of like short and sweet. So be
Yeah.
convinced that I'm an under earner and that I cannot manage my own life.
Okay.
Be
Good.
convinced that probably no human power could relieve me of my under earning, under being,
Okay.
and that be convinced that God could and would relieve me if I seek Him.
Okay.
And then decide to turn my thoughts and actions over to the care of that higher power. So
Okay.
make that decision. And then I liked what you said. So that kind of fit right into above everything. We must be rid of self, right? So because
Hmm.
selfishness and self-centeredness are the root of my troubles. So then quit playing God, sincerely take the position that God is running the show and is the director and my new employer. Become interested in what I can contribute to life.
I like that.
And abandon myself utterly to him. And then of course there's the be reborn.
Be reborn. I like that. We were just talking about that. That
So,
one before be reborn, I would take that and put that at the top of the list.
abandon myself utterly to higher power. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. That's a short list. See, you already had a short list.
Well, it came from
That's fine. Everybody starts with a long list to get to a short list.
Okay, cool.
Called editing. It's good.
All right.
Very good. I'm editing my list. I'm getting rid of the fat. So I'm look like the hole in the donut. I wonder how many people are going to have that on their list. Okay, who's next?
I'll go.
I love it.
Hi. So
Hi.
the one thing that really stands out to me the most is it's on page 63. It says, established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that because I was just about to say, I think this belongs on everybody's list.
Yeah.
Lose interest in myself and all my little plans and designs.
Mm-hmm.
Does that not capture the essence of step 3?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm, and so, and that's not like that's an unchallenging idea, right? Basically what it's saying, it's like, give up everything you want. in not too, not in so many words, right?
And I think it also says like, just relinquish, the energy and all the time and years that you spent like reading into your own story. Like, just let that shit go.
Mm. I buy that.
Yeah. So that was like number 1 on my short list.
I
Number
love
2,
it.
God is everything. Pause and
Does
pray.
that come from God is either everything or he's nothing?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But I'm like, God is
I'm into it.
everything. I don't need that.
Right.
Like,
I know. No, I like it. No,
isn't
I get
even
it.
an option for me. Like,
I get it.
yeah.
I'm with you. I'm right there.
Be reborn, pause and pray, and conform my will to God's will, become willing to be willing.
Mm. I think that's
That's
pretty good. Here's one here, because I'm redoing my list because my list is too long, right? So right now my list is lose interest in myself and my little plans and designs. Fantastic. Make God my employer. Be reborn. That's epic. Become conscious of his presence. Like that's ever a bad idea. Okay. All right. Oh, look like the hole in the donut. Nobody else has to put that on there if they don't want it to. But for me, that goes very much in line with let go of my little plans and designs. Because it's this thing of like, I don't need to be anything. The absolute relief of I don't need to be anything special. Wow. So good. Okay. Who's next?
All right, I only had one other one that a lot of them have been said.
Okay.
Actually, Evan, could you mind just explaining the hole in the donut one a little bit more?
The hole in the donut, right? It's like the the donut the donut is an object, right? But at its center there's nothing. And so here I am being a person in the world. But at my center there's this, I would say there's this soul. We talked a little bit about today in the other thing about this whole thing of, and this very much applies to step 3, when we're connecting with our higher power, we're connecting to a whole other plane of existence, which I would call the real world, right? We're connecting to the real world. And here in this third dimension, we're lost in all the suffering and pain, right? So when you start to touch the real world, it's very confusing for the ego, which is trapped in third dimensional existence, which is life and death and survival and struggle. And I've got to climb to the top of the heap and all of that. And part of the ego is it is seeking identity. It wants to be something, it wants to be important. And this is natural because it's trying to survive. And again, back in our tribal nature, you needed to be likable and you needed to be memorable so that when the camp, everybody in the middle of the night picked up and ran away because of whatever threat, you wanted to be memorable and not forgotten. So it's built into our natures to be liked by others, but it's all ego based, it's all survival based. And so just the need for identity, the need to stand out, the need to be special is part of the ego's survival mechanism. But at our core, in the real world, we are each of us so secure in the real truth of who we are that we could care less whether anybody on this plane values us or not. It's like total freedom. And so the power, so here's like when you get into the ego trying to understand reality, you always get into paradox. You get into how can God be everything and nothing at the same time? How can God be the most powerful force in the world and in the universe and at the same time be the most humble? Like those things don't fit. That doesn't make sense to the mind. And so the ego is trying, and you guys, if you look honestly inside yourself, it's like we're all trying so hard to be loved. And that's why we need that identity. We're trying to build this identity. I'm the greatest at this, I'm the greatest at that, I'm the best at that, I'm known for this, I'm likable because of this, right? And but to be so secure in the truth of who you are, to not need any of that, to not be worried about any of that, that's being the hole in the donut. It's I don't even need an identity. It's like if you like me at all, and if you don't, that's totally fine. But do you like me because of my accomplishments? Because of the things that I did? Do you go, oh, that's rad. But really it's, if you like me, like some people could be impressed by some of the things I've done, but if you like me, it's my essence, really, that's the thing. And if I look at each of you, it's the same. It's like Shayna may make beautiful jewelry, but to me, Shayna is this ball of light. And that's who she is, regardless of what she's accomplishing. Now, you know, we're all working with Shayna to help Shayna see her own light and thing and get all that out into the world, right? And that's all good and fine. But at our essence, we don't have any needs. That's one of the truths of the spiritual plane is we just don't need anything. And when you connect with that deep energy inside of you, that's one of the things you'll feel when you connect to that deep intuition, which is very much in alignment with step 3. That energy is never hurried, never hurried, never worried. It's never stressed. It's always relaxed. And it's always 100% comfortable with you exactly where you are. You do not need to change at all, ever. So if you don't need to change for the ultimate power in the universe and be better, then who do you need to change for? Who do you need to be different for? That's in a way, that's the sort of big message, right? Is we're fine, just like we are. Don't need to improve. We just need to realize our fineness. Okay. So, did you have any more that you wanted to share, Raj?
Oh yeah, just the one. I love the line, feel a new power flow in.
I like that too. I like that too.
And every other line you've already shared was on my list, is on the short list.
Good. I like give step 3 a determined and persistent trial. Like that's something you can actually practice. And I do like you just said, and I'm putting it on mine, is let the power flow in. Okay, who else has something else they want to, that they think is important, that should be on someone's list, everybody's list?
I'll, uh, I've written a lot of the things that people have said are already written down here, but I would have added ask for help
Hmm,
and never act out of fear.
okay.
Um, and I also, people have mentioned this already, but it's my favorite one. It's at the top of my list. God is my employer. Quit playing God. I sort of have that as
I think that's fair.
one thing. That's it.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else have anything else? So we're getting there with a list. It's looking pretty good. So, some other possibles for your list: make God the director, be his agent. It's not a bad one. Lose my fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. Did I say this one already? Practice dependence on God to gain true independence of spirit. And I would say, if we take some of these here, like these are kind of the main idea, right? Like,
Oh, can you just repeat that last one?
yeah, of course. Practice
Practice.
dependence on God to gain true independence of spirit.
Thank you.
Make dependence on God my chief source of strength, right? Like, if you take that one idea right there and you say, now I'm going to practice living this, as Cheryl said, and again, that maybe should be at the top of everybody's list. Nothing short of continuous action on these steps as a way of life will bring the much desired result, right? That's a sort of sentence for us to live by with that. Like that's at the top of 1, 2, and 3, so that I'm continually practicing 1, 2, and 3. Make dependence on God my chief source of strength. Imagine if you really said, my life needs to embody that, such that when people see me and talk to me, they get that. Do you see what I mean? Do you see how, like, I know these things are a touch esoteric. They're not like go to the store and buy some nails, right? That's as practical as you can get, but that's something you can work on, making dependence on God my chief source of strength. You can actually spend your time focused on doing that. And that's the idea here. That's practicing these steps in a different way than we normally talk about. When it says action, I agree, but it's not the actions of going out into your life and doing all this stuff. It's doing the actions of losing interest in myself and little plans and designs. Like you can work on that. You can actively work on letting go of my interest in my little plans and designs, which it says to do right here. Now, the thing is the ego doesn't want to do that because the ego is convinced that its little plans and designs are going to be the thing that's going to make it happy. And that's where we're working with this stuff. Because that smallness of that ego, that's what we're learning how to surrender in this process. Okay, I like your guys' lists. I think they're great. Now you have short lists for 1, 2, and 3, yes. So you are very well armed, at a moment's notice, as long as you have your phone with you. God forbid if you lose your phone. But you have your phone with you. So it's like you can look at your phone in moments of trouble and you can work the steps in an instant. And like I said, this stuff comes up all the time. So let me give you my example, just this week of sort of working these steps. So what was it? Thursday, I had a day where I went out to hang out with my best buddy to go see a soccer game. And so I was doing a workshop. And so I was going out to LA, but I was very committed to still doing this workshop. So I was like, I sort of worked it out to where um, I could meet a friend, and we could still do the workshop. And then I got to play some pickleball, yada, yada. So I was driving out from the desert 2 hours east of LA. So the last 30 years in LA, so I know it well. And I know that if I leave before 4:30, it's a straight 2-hour shot to LA through the morning traffic. And if I leave after 4:30, it's a 3.5 hour drive. Right. So I got myself together. I left after 4:30. And so it was a very long drive. And I got to see some wonderful examples of humanity in motion. You know what I mean? Like the rush hour traffic and the insanity, and the rage and all of it, right? And so I'm doing this, and I'm in a very peaceful place. I'm very much looking forward to my day. It feels expansive. And all of a sudden it's like, boy, being in this sort of chaos all around me, and the people cutting people off and all sorts of stuff. It was not, in that moment, I was very much not missing LA. I was not going, gosh, I wish I still lived here. Um, and so I started to get stressed. And so like for everybody, it started the same way it did for everybody. It's like, okay, now I'm stressed. And it's like, okay, oh God, this is a lot, this is tension. I went, wait, hold it. What's going on? And I went, oh, okay. The next place I got to was, oh, this LA traffic is really affecting me. I don't want it to affect me and ruin my positive state of mind. Now, had I stayed there, um, it would have not been working the steps, right? It would have been management. Does that make sense? It's like, okay, now here is this energy that I'm dealing with that I'm now resisting out of fear. I'm afraid this energy is going to get me. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and I said, okay, this is not right, because what do I know? I know that there's no energy that can come at me that is not in me. I also know from our work, right? I know immediately that the reason that I think I'm upset is absolutely not the reason that I'm upset. The one thing I can be sure that this stress is not about is the traffic, because the system is designed to distract me from getting to the real problem. So the thing that it tells me is the problem, I know 100% for sure is not it. So now I'm starting to get into step one, because now I'm starting to go, wait a minute, this tension and this fear inside of me, this is my real issue. And now I'm going to go directly to the fear, and I'm going to start to see, I'm going to look, I'm going to admit, right? So in this process, like I told you, for step one, seeing is the most important thing, seeing. So now I'm looking, look and listen. I'm starting to really look and go, well, what could be causing me to attract this energy? Now, notice in my story, I left later than I should. So on a certain level, I was inviting this energy. Can you see that in terms of my part? If I'd left at 4:15, I wouldn't have been in that spot. So something about me needed that. And I can tell you what it is, because I was looking, is the day, like going to a soccer game with my buddy and all of this, and then meeting up with my other friend and doing our workshop in front of the marina. It all felt very expansive, which was stressing my nervous system a little bit. It's like, you better be careful. You don't want to live too, I felt like a little bit like a YouTube celebrity, right? It's like, you better be careful. You don't want to live too loud here. You're gonna get in trouble, right? So that was my resistance to my expansion. Make sense? Now that I know what it is, now I can begin to deal with the fear. See, when I think it's LA traffic, now I'm in a fight. I'm in a fight. But now that I know it's coming from me, now I can begin to heal. So now as I'm driving, so by the time I got there, I was back in my total flow. And there wasn't, my situation is not the best story, because there's not a third step decision I needed to make. I didn't need to fire somebody or hire somebody, right? I didn't get the clarity, but the whole thing dissolved once I got to the real problem, right? I got to the fear of like, oh no, it's not okay to live big, and it's not okay to expand. That's not all right. So once I started being with that fear, it started to dissipate, and then I was back into my flow. So that's an example of working the steps. Now, that is a very real world, everyday situation kind of for all of us, isn't it? That's how practical this is. There's, you're standing in line in the supermarket and the guy in front of you is annoying. This is not just how can I tighten and grip my teeth and wait till I get away from him. That's the standard thing. No, that's an opportunity while I'm standing in line to work the steps. Nothing, what is it? Nothing short of continuous action on the steps as a way of life will bring the much desired result. So we're practicing this as a way of life, dare I say, religiously, right? This is kind of the meaning of religious, right? Not doctrine and all that, but I'm attending to this as the most important thing. And I can sort of speak to that. I can sort of say, yes, as I have made this process and this way of constantly applying this spiritual wisdom to each and every problem, or to as many problems as I can, my life has gotten infinitely more peaceful. And that's a really good example because I was stressed. And because I availed myself of the power of the universe and brought that in to the stress, it was relieved. So I'd love to hear if anybody else is having any kind of similar results in terms of something coming up and now you don't have to, I mean, God, you do not have to open your phone, to do this, as you internalize it. The phone is there. The phone is not, it's not even so much for the moment where you're stressed necessarily. It's kind of good to just look at it, you know, as you're sitting there having your morning coffee. Let me review these steps and let me look so that when something comes up, or because like this thing right here, lose interest in myself and my little plans of designs. When I'm having that coffee and that muffin, I can work on that, right? What are my plans and designs? Oh, what do I want to do today? What do I want to get done? What is the goal that my ego has set up for me? Oh, can I let go of that? Oh, I need to make a note. Pardon me. Okay. Okay, I'm back. All right, so I'd love to hear somebody's sort of story of, okay, uh, this is how I use this. This is how I sort of took these principles and applied them, Does anybody have any? And if nobody has anything like that, that's okay. I'm just curious if anybody has an example of where they were caught in a loop and they were able to step outside of that loop using these spiritual tools. Okay, good. Okay, so then the next opportunity is, does somebody have something that they're wrestling with, right? That we could sort of work through this sort of live, right? To get to the other side, again, as an example for everybody else, which takes, courage and vulnerability. And I will certainly salute you and I will slide you that $2 that I owe you underneath the table. Because, again, I'm as much as I say that this stuff is doable and you can do it, I'm also very aware that this is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, right? It's ultimately very simple, right? Let me break it down for you a little more, make it even more simple, just in case you're lost in all this. Feel your feelings, right? That simplifies it a little bit, doesn't it? Your feeling comes up, you don't fight it, you feel it. You allow it to be. And you let it move through you. That's the simplest way you can say all this. But in that is all of these processes of surrender, of letting go, of opening yourself, right, to something greater than yourself. All these things are happening, but you could simplify it and shortcut it by just feeling your feelings. Now, I know that there's plenty of people here who have done this in the long form, right? In other words, tackled big issues. But now we're sort of talking in a very real way about bringing this to sort of everything, bringing this to like I used an example earlier this morning of, you're buying new tires for the car and they say, oh, that model's out of stock. It'll be $300 more. What do you do? How do you handle that? Like that's a very real world solution. And what I would say to that is use the steps. And what I mean by that is if there's fear because it's $300 more, that's a moment. If you're like $300 more, okay, fine. You don't need to use the steps. Right. But if there's fear and there's this reaction, and I'm like, I don't know, should I do it? Should I not do it? That's a perfect time for the steps because you want to get to a place where you're no longer afraid before you make that decision, before you write that check. Kelly, was that a hand up? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Kelly, and then Natasha.
Yeah, I guess I kind of do have a story, but
Okay.
I
All
didn't
right.
realize I was doing it. You know,
All
when
right.
I've been stressed and not stressed, but moving to Vancouver
Mm-hmm.
or staying here for the summer, and I was looking for places in both places.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd commute in out of fear and whatnot, and then I had to call my boss today. I thought it was gonna be this hard conversation, and it wasn't. It was all made up in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Always, yes.
And he's like, and then I was like, yeah, the place I found here that I'm still waiting. She goes, oh, well, if you live there, you could work at my other location too. And when she said that, the peace that come over me,
Mm.
it was like, I knew staying here for the summer was the right decision. But like
Mm.
my ego was fighting to get my ass to Vancouver in that condo high in the sky.
Right.
And I've been peaceful ever since.
Lovely. Right. Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
think through, but maybe like it was that feeling I'm aligned. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't ignore that. Like maybe in a couple hours I might get mad, the ego. But yeah.
I mean, that's a beautiful example of like, okay, here comes this thing. I think one thing of note here is when you talk about lose interest in myself and my little plans and designs. I think one thing you can see in your story is your ego or a part of you has a really strong thing of, I've got to get to that condo in Vancouver. I've got to get there. And when you feel that kind of gripping, something's up. That's a sort of a yellow light, at least, if not a red light of like, okay, the ego's going after something. And so instinctively, automatically, that's not the answer. Now, that doesn't mean it's not Vancouver. It just means following that energy and that part down that road. That's not the energy that you want to follow. That energy is a 2 out of 10,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's not
And
great.
even my short list, I put don't kick in the door because that's what I'm trying to do to get to Vancouver.
Good, right. And so I thought I wrote it in a post or something recently, but I'll just say it here. It's like, oh, did I lose it? Ah, I lost it. Where'd it go? It's out there in the ether. We'll see if it comes back. All right. Very good, though. Very good. And that settled thing, it's like that's what you're looking for. That's when you sort of hit God's will, is when you have that sort of, right? Because we haven't talked about it much in here. And it seems like I was going to like kick us into the fourth step starting next week, but I think maybe I'll delay that a week because I feel like it's worth talking about intuition in here, right? Because it's very much a part of this. If I'm telling you that the main verb for this is to listen, right? Because when it says, make dependence on God my chief source of strength, well, how do I do that? I listen. I listen. So you guys could put that in there in your list, right? That verb, listen, because that's what will take you to this. And going back to, oh, that was it. It was seeing, right? So earlier in this workshop or whatever the hell it is we're doing here, I think I said seeing is equivalent to admitting. Like these are synonymous. If I can see the bars of my prison, I can start to break free until I see / admit, because Bill said, I saw I could not so much as take a single drink anymore. Right? That's the same as admitting. It's like, I see it. I see what and you saw that you had a part that was hell bent on getting to Vancouver. You're seeing your bondage. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that part that's so hell bent on getting to Vancouver is in a lot of pain. Right? Can you feel that?
Yeah, I'm trying to provide myself with with a home. And
It's not you. It's this part. And this part is tortured. And it's desperate to try to solve that feeling of being tortured. And so it says, its a little plan and design. It says, if I get to Vancouver, I will not be tortured anymore. Like that's what's happening underneath the hood. That energy, that's why it's a 2, because that part is miserable. So the analogy I always use is this. Imagine I say to you, Kelly, you've just won the lottery. I'm giving you 43 million euros or yen or whatever the dollars, US dollars. I don't know. What currency do you use in Canada? Do you have like a Canadian? The what?
I'll take US because it's more. Thank you.
You take the USD. Okay. So you get 43 million USD. And so the way that we all live is it's like if we take that 43 million and we go to the nearest homeless shelter that we can find, and we find an unhoused person, and we say to them, I just won $43 million. You seem really miserable. You seem like you're having a horrible life. I would like to take this $43 million and I'd like you to invest it for me and to try to build my wealth. Would you please do that? Like nobody would do that, except that's what we're doing all day long. That's what you're doing with that part. That part is saying you're trying to follow that miserable part to get to freedom. But that miserable part is only going to bring you to misery because
Yeah,
that's what it knows.
like I need to prove to myself that I can do it. I can make it.
Right, said the part, right? So that part that says, I need to prove to myself, that part needs love and healing. And you say to it, you don't need to prove anything to anybody. And I love you and I got you. And maybe you can relax and you can breathe because you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to make it all work. I know you felt your whole life like you have to, but you don't. You see how that starts to change the way that part feels? It starts to feel a little more relief. Yeah, that part needs relief. It doesn't need you to go, you're right. You're right. We got to get the hell out of here. It's like, it's like the kid that's convinced that the lollipop is the answer. You know what I mean? I want the lollipop. As a good parent, chances are that's not the best option is to give the screaming kid the lollipop. You don't give the screaming kid the keys to the car and say, okay, you drive. It's like, no. You say, sweetheart, I'm right here. Let me hold you. That's what you do with a crying 2-year-old. You don't say, I'm making you my financial manager. You're 2 and you're very upset. I can see that you're making very sound decisions. Here you go. Right. So that's why in step 3, we start to develop this listening and we start to develop this sensitivity. And one of the chief characteristics, which I think we talked about already, trying to listen to the difference in the voices in your head, and you want to follow the happy ones. Like, let's say, most of you should probably know about Al-Anon, right? What we're doing is we're going in an Al-Anon room and say, gosh, I really need a sponsor. Let me find the most miserable person I can find and say, okay, that's what we're doing. You find the person who's just over on the sidelines and they're just weeping into their purse. You look good. You look great. Let's go with you. It's like, no, but because it's an unconscious decision, we don't see that that's what we're doing, but that's what we're doing. No, you want to find you go, I want the happiest person in the Al-Anon room. That's who I want to be my sponsor. They know how to be happy. So you want to follow the voices that are happy inside of you, and not like rah ego happy. We're talking about grounded happy, like real happy. And those voices are in there, but we have to listen for them. That's why listening for step 3. Thanks for sharing that, Kelly. Okay, Dr. Natasha, what have you to offer us?
I mean, first of all, this thing that you're teaching is genius, and I've been applying it right and left and front and center to the point that I'm sort of exhausted because I'm in a new relationship, as
Okay.
you and Raj know,
Yeah.
and it is in conjunction with the habit workshop that we're doing. And thanks, Raj, I appreciate that. But in conjunction with the habit workshop, and also with my mom having died recently and having cleared away largely, I mean entirely in part because of the homework and the work and the feelings and stuff that you had me doing, for a long time prior to that preparatory. It's like the iceberg that was everything related to my mom sort of got cleared, and then these other icebergs are rising.
Yes.
And it sort of feels like everything happening at once. So I was like, what example should I pick? I literally have 10 examples just from today alone.
Right.
Okay. Of being like, oh, and so I guess what I'm saying is a twofold thing. I mean, I could pick an example from today and use that as an example, if you want, but also I want to say that there is a part of me that it feels like it just wiped, like
Mm.
like
Yeah.
severe, like I feel like I'm barely functional, honestly,
Right.
from the
Well,
past few days of like doing the habit, just to finish, just like from the
yeah,
habit,
yeah.
like yesterday, I had just had all of these realizations come up. Thank God, because it sets me free. But just about why the idea of quitting caffeine puts a whole scale panic in me, and remembered all these things from when I was 11 years old that I haven't thought of since, for why I needed
Mm.
that drug to survive the house that I was in.
Yeah.
And so that really set me free. But what it's also doing is I'm noticing I'm using this to not be reactive, like,
Hmm.
but I'm also just feeling so much stuff right now, and
Yeah.
it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Sharing that, I think, is good. Let's just touch on that. Okay, so for those of you who are involved in this process, who are actively trying to live your life from this place of I'm letting go of self and I'm trying to listen to something deeper. Um, the shifts, the emotional shifts and the emotions you're going through, it is exhausting. Okay. That's why I'm a huge fan of people tell me I can't get out of bed. I go, great. But like you can get so much done in bed. People have so much judgment, but it's like when you're working as hard as we're working to let go of these things that have plagued your whole life, that takes a lot of psychic energy. So don't judge yourself for that, right? And with what you're going through, Natasha, absolutely, you should be exhausted. First of all, you're getting off caffeine, right? Yeah, I mean, you're working toward even right. So of
I mean, I've
course,
cut it in half. I
yeah,
just
you
still.
have. So you just that alone, you'd have to expect like, okay, you're gonna have well, bravo, by the way, bravo, right? And go slow. Take your time. Don't push too hard because so much stuff's going to come at you. And exactly what you said is exactly what I would expect. As you were letting go of the drug, the things that the drug is holding down are going to come up. That's the reason for a drug. But that's not just the reason for the drug. I want you guys to get this on the larger context. That's the reason for the failure. The failure is holding stuff down too. You see, like
What do you
if I'm
What do you mean?
so if let's just take my life as an example, right? So I had a father, rageaholic, brilliant, 182 IQ, nothing ever pleased him, right? So his perception of me was always like, Evan is underperforming, not fulfilling his potential. So I become the guy that is comfortable with lots of potential, never fulfilling it. Okay. Um, So this becomes my idea. This becomes the place that I'm comfortable in. So I'm out there working hard and trying to make stuff happen, but I get defeated and I can't get out of bed and yada yada. I'm still in this place of feeling like a failure, right? So I'm a failure. That's home base. That's comfortable. Now I'm spending all my time and energy thinking that I'm trying to not be that, but it's home base. And so when I'm a failure, there are all sorts of feelings that I don't have to feel. Now, when I started to break out of the failure, oh my God, you better believe I felt some feelings. I felt a lot of rage toward my father at keeping me down in that story in that way. You know, it's like it's entirely possible that like he enjoyed being above me and having somebody that he could sort of be better than, right? It's like F you. Right? So that kid is mad. That's going to come up. You know, and to undo all of that stuff, like that takes huge energy. And if you're not doing it in this conscious way that we did, because when I, you know, this is 18, 20 years ago that I went through this, I didn't have anybody to tell me, guess what? There are going to be a lot of feelings. I didn't have a support group. Really. Like nobody in Debtors Anonymous, which is how I was doing this, understood what was happening to me. My sponsor was just a tough as nails old broad. She was not this emotionally supportive thing, right? So we have this group to say, yeah, you're going to go through a shit ton of feelings and you're going to walk through them and you're supposed to. So we started the day with always a death and always a birth, always at the same time. When you are living this life of spiritual transformation, you are always being reborn. We even had it on our thing, be reborn, allow yourself to be reborn. But if you're being reborn, you are also dying. You're dying to the old way. So I couldn't remain a loser and earn six figures. Those did not go together. I had to choose. And I was torn apart, sitting, feeling like a loser, sitting at this $5,000 desk with this $10,000 computer next to all these six-figure designers that I'm next to. And I feel like this loser. I feel like the police are going to come and drag me out of the building any moment. I was just literally being torn in two. One side is saying you're a loser, and the other one's saying, like, look what you're manifesting. You're successful. That's why money doesn't fix anything. Talk about gaining weight, man. I gained 35 pounds. I was miserable every day because my nervous system was not acclimated to success. I was acclimated to failure, right? And so it's no different than coffee. This is how under earning is a protection mechanism. You get it? It's no different than coffee. Coffee is holding things down, and so is being an under earner or having under fulfilling your potential. The feelings that I had that came up as a result of stopping the under earning were tore me apart. Right. So we don't know what the coffee's holding down, but it's going to be a lot.
I have a pretty big idea.
Yeah, you're getting there with it. Yeah.
So I have a question with that. So
Yeah.
what I'm experiencing as well is I'm feeling pretty much paralyzed as far as taking action towards doing my taxes, addressing financial paperwork regarding to my mom that I am already behind on. Okay. And my brother, hello, vetting a book for a big publisher that I'm going to be starting, recording like an audition, starting another book. Like I have big things on the table, like the taxes alone are a big thing, right? And I feel completely incapacitated. Like I feel like I just can't. And I don't know if this is just a feeling from the past couple of days, but it's so big that my question is, where is that falling into this? Like,
It's a perfect thing to work the steps on. So what I'm always telling you, what I'm always telling everybody is the quicker you can get to the feeling, that's where the juice is. That's where the energy is. When you can get down to the feeling, that's where step one is at.
the feeling is torture.
The feeling is torture, and it's the same feeling for every single thing on that list. It's not a different part. It's not a different energetic, right? So the torture is the thing. So we want to go straight into that, right? So you recognize, I'm sure, that the torture is not coming from these things. Like these things are triggering it, right? So that means you have torture in your history. You have a part of you that feels tortured, right? And I can feel that, and I can feel the intensity of that, and it's strong. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 11, right? It's so intense. It's like, okay, so you see the history of it, you see that you're powerless over it, you feel the intensity. You are 100% powerless over that feeling. And what I would urge you to do is to not think about or worry about the tasks that you have at hand, right? Which is counterintuitive. I understand that. But I've done this so many times with so many
Those are
people, and it
diversionary
works.
stories, right? They're just
That's
diversionary
right.
stories.
That's right. And so, right,
So,
just so that you can be in that cycle.
so what I've been doing the past 2 days, and tell me if this is in alignment with what you're talking about, is I got really clear about where the torture feeling specifically really crystallized. And that was, when I was 11 and my father had a psychotic split.
Yes.
And I was alone in the house with him and my little brother. And it felt like being in a house of absolute purgatory and full of
Mhm.
demons and just like beyond horrific. And so the way I've been feeling the past 2 days is like I'm in that house
Yes.
and it's really intense.
And are you in it, like being rolled by the wave, or are you standing back and
I'm
holding
standing
the little
back.
girl? Good.
I'm standing back and I'm looking at it and I'm holding the little girl, the 11-year-old. I'm just like sitting with her in her room
Yeah.
with her crazy father in the
There's
house.
really there's
But
really nothing else to do.
but
Right?
even
That's
just
step
sitting
2.
with but even just sitting with her in her room is really intense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think it was last week, but I think I talked about this sort of scale, which you were nodding your head. I remember last week when we were talking about it, because you were thinking about it from the standpoint of your mother, right? And the scale of when you first touch a new part, it's like touching hot iron. You know what I mean? It's like absolute, like intolerable to be with. And as you start to go, you start to get more comfortable and more comfortable and you be with it to the point where you're befriending it. At a certain point, as you stay with this, you will befriend that energy. Right now, it's a wild dog that you've rescued from the forest with a broken leg. Right now, it's trying to bite you and, kill you. And all you're trying to do is feed it and give it some water, you know what I mean, and clean it. But that's the state she's in, and it's understandable that she's in that state, right? I mean, if she's in this sort of house as an 11-year-old trying to protect her little brother with a psychopath, right? It's like, why would she be feeling any differently? So let's just we're about to run out of time, but let's just take 1 minute. I'm going to time it, right? We're all going to sort of energetically just hold Natasha and hold Natasha's little 11-year-old girl together. I'm going to do it for 2 minutes. Right. Just let's just hold that space for her so she can feel that. Okay, ready? On your mark, get set. Everybody just sort of hold space for that little girl. Okay. How was that, Natasha?
That was really lovely. I could feel you guys. Thank you.
To me, there was a lot of shift in that. I think there'll be a little bit of fallout because that was again, all these powerful souls here holding that little girl, right? That's a step forward for her. She's feeling that the universe. So let's see how that
She,
reverberates.
she was shocked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I felt a big shift. I felt her completely clenched in the beginning, and I felt her lighten up as it went on. So to me, that was great.
Thanks,
So
you
good job,
guys.
everybody. So I would be more than happy anytime anyone wants to come in and say, hey, will people hold some space for this part that I want to be with? Because that's the essence of all of this, right? It's you were ceasing fighting anything or anyone, right? Because how many years has that voice been there and that essentially you've run from it? Right. So to having the courage to stop and turn around and feel that, and then to invite others in to feel that. It's beautiful. You look so beautiful right now. You really do. You really do. Um, so that's good. I mean, so let's put this on its feet and let's practice that. And next week, I'm just making one note here to talk about intuition, right? Because we really want to be living by intuition. It says so in the big book. Intuition and inspiration. That's not our logical, rational minds. It's our spirit and our soul connected to something higher and deeper. And this is the thing that we want to listen to. And we also want to practice. We might even spend 2 weeks on step 3 here because this whole other part of like we diagnosed with you, Kelly, this whole other thing of listening to energy that's out of its mind, to be able to distinguish that and to go, oh, gosh, I shouldn't listen to that. That is also almost as valuable, right? It's not quite as valuable because to connect to the real thing, that's the most important thing. But to be able to separate the two, to tell the difference between something that's lying to me and something that's telling me the truth is the essential skill of step 3. You have to know which voice to listen to. And if you can't tell the difference, you're going to be all over the place. Okay.
Okay.
Well, okay, Raj, last question. And then I think
Oh
we
yeah. Sorry, we're
had
a
to
little
just,
over time. Yeah. First of all,
yeah, it's okay.
that was beautiful, awesome. Hearts with you, Natasha. That's so beautiful. That's so cool for all of us to do.
Natasha,
Um,
beautiful.
I just want to share, Evan, this is awesome because I've done this, again, I've been almost sober 15 years. I've never done step 3 like this. It's genius, dude. It's awesome.
Hmm.
Intuition and inspiration, like I've never gotten that. I just want to share that with the group and how awesome this is. That's it. It's just
Hmm.
awesome.
Good. I mean, I hope it's adding up, making sense. You're getting value from it. Because as you live this way, your light will open up and shine, and you guys will go out and you will affect people beyond this little circle. You know what I mean? With your awesomeness, because you're going to just reveal more and more of it. That's really the point of all this. So go ye forth and prosper, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Deb.
So and then in a
Yeah,
week or
love you.
two,
Much.
when
See
we do
you
the fourth
guys.
step, thank you guys. When we do the fourth step, we're going to take 2 weeks off because I have a video. I've already recorded a whole video on the fourth step. So you guys you'll watch that. And then we'll come back and then we'll live workshop that stuff. We'll,
Oh,
we'll,
cool.
we'll, we'll do, if you have resentments and stuff, we'll work. So just understand that in terms of your day to day, 1, 2, and 3 will cover you. The reason to do 4 is to get down to these long standing things. Because if you just do 1, 2, and 3, that will be slower because you're just putting out fires all the time. Right. Step 4 is when we get proactive and we start to sort of really be with these parts and come after them, not go after them, but start to really attend to them so that they dissipate. And that's when it starts to get really lovely because you're no longer putting out fires. Now you're ahead of the game. You're in there in advance, which you can't unfortunately do for everything because there's always this thing, Natasha. So I just want to point that out. And the last thing. So Natasha did all this amazing, incredible work around her mother and got to such peace so that when her mother passed, there was this beautiful thing. And because she did all this incredible work, this is what I've experienced a lot. She had a month and a half of just the most openness she's had in a long time.
More joy in a month and a half than I've felt in my whole life.
Okay, right. This is my experience. When you walk through these things and you get to the other side, this is what happens. And that's kind of the timetable, month and a half to sort of reset and rest. And then the next thing comes through. I did a post earlier today about the positive spiral, right? And this is the positive spiral that you're in. So here's the next spiritual awakening knocking at the door for Natasha, right? Now, on the other side of this, however big this is, remember the spiritual awakening is equal to the depth of the suffering and the constriction. So you are now lined up for another huge spiritual awakening in which when you open up to that, you will experience an expansiveness that will dwarf this one because that's the way that it works. And this is not like science fiction. It's not theory. It's like if you show up and you walk through these feelings, for those people who have done it consistently, all the mystique has gone out of it. Like there's no, it's not like this mumbo jumbo, like if you rub your tummy like this and shake your head and dance on one leg, it'll happen. No, it's like if you bring spirit to these wounded things, right? Then because feelings are finite, you will walk through them. And on the other side of that is all that beauty that is inside of you. And you will experience it on a whole new level. And each time you go through, you will experience it on an even deeper level. That's the journey that we're talking about. That's the journey we're signing up for. Doing this as a way of life. And the quote that I thought of today that really fits this is, he who would be constant in happiness must be constant in change. We have to continue to allow all of our little plans and designs to go away in favor of this incredibly expansive. Now, Natasha, I'm sorry, I keep saying I'm going to stop, but it's too good. Now, that expansiveness and that peace and the best joy of your life, how much did that have to do with your real world accomplishments?
Oh, nothing.
Zero. Wasn't because you got nominated for this award or won that thing or got this big contract. Zero. The
No,
most peace in your life.
Yeah, no, nothing.
Because nothing is better than freedom. Nothing is better than freedom. Right? Yeah. That's the real deal. So it's like, yes, we're here, we're working on your money and stuff, and that's good. We want to do that. But the real goal is freedom. That's what I care about. I'm so happy if you get wealthy and you're doing what you love, but I don't want you to be like Raj and get the job and have the money and be miserable. I'm not I'm not into that. I want you guys to experience freedom because you all deserve it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm shutting up. Have a great one.
Thank
Talk to
you.
Thank
guys.
Thank
you,
you,
Evan.
everyone. See you next week.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Thanks, Evan.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.
thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Kevin.